This is the last day of Unit 2, Day 12 of Unit 2. So we started with a warm-up. You should solve using any method. So take a moment, pause the video, do the warm-up, and then play to check your answers. So if I try to use Kramer's method, let's say, I'm going to find the determinant, D. So I'm going to find that of 2, 4, 6, and 12. So when I find the determinant, I'm doing 24 minus 24, and that's 0. So D is 0. And when D is 0, remember, you cannot use Kramer's rule because you can't divide by 0. And you have to divide by D for Kramer's rule. You also can't use matrices because when D equals 0, that means the matrix doesn't have an inverse. So I can't use inverse matrices. So that means I have to use a different technique. Now, don't just stop here and say not possible. It is possible, you just can't use matrices or Kramer's rule. So instead, we could use, I don't know, let's say elimination. So if I'm eliminating, I could simplify these equations. 2x plus 4y equals 6. I can divide everything by 2. So x plus 2y equals 3. Second equation, 6x plus 12y equals 18. I can divide everything by 6. So x plus 2y equals 3. And then you're noticing, well, maybe you're noticing, maybe not, but this is the same equation. So I know when I have the same equation, that line intersects itself infinitely many times. So I know that it's infinite solutions. Remember, infinite solutions are going to happen when you have the same equation, just one is a multiple of the other one. So if I multiply this top equation by 3 every term, I would get the bottom. So that means I'm going to have infinite solutions, because if I graph this, both equations, I'd end up with the same line, and that same line intersects itself infinitely many times. So infinite solutions. If I didn't notice that it was the same equation, I could very easily eliminate here. And when I add, I'm getting 0 equals 0, which is a true statement. So when the variables drop out and we have a true statement, that's infinite solutions. Also keep in mind that had we had the variables drop out using elimination and we got something like 0 equals 5, well, that's not true. In that case, we would say no solution. And that would be because the two different lines were parallel, or the equations when the variables drop out when I'm trying to eliminate and I get something that's not true, that's because the lines are parallel. If I graphed both equations, the lines are parallel. So that would be no solution. That would also sometimes happen when we try to use Kramer's and we get the determinant being 0. So if the determinant equals 0 and you're trying to use Kramer's, you can't. You have to use a different technique. In which case, if you get something that's true, that's infinite solutions, or if you get something that's false, like 0 equals 5, you would say no solution. Okay, so that was the warm-up we did. Then I gave a list of what to expect on tomorrow's test. So take a look at that. Notice the only item that you're allowed to use a calculator on would be solving a 3x3 system of equations using matrices. So there's one problem on the test where you're allowed to use a calculator, and that's what it is, solving a system of equations using matrices with a 3x3. On the other hand, the 2x2, solving a system of equations that has 2 equations and 2 variables, that should be done using matrices without a calculator. So in other words, if I have A, x equals B, multiplying both sides by A inverse, and then I know that x is equal to A inverse times B. So by hand, I'd have to find A inverse, and then I'd have to multiply that by B. So expect to be able to do that without a calculator. Again, everything else listed here also without a calculator. Kramer's rule, 2x2. Word problems, just 2 variables, no 3 variable word problems on the test. And solving systems of equations by substitution elimination, I will tell you on the test there is one that you're required to use elimination for, and it's a 3 equation, 3 variable system. So make sure you're able to do that by hand without a calculator using elimination. Okay. The rest of class today was just time to work on the review on pages 33 through 35 and page 29, the right side. So please complete that for tomorrow, in addition to finishing up all problems that have been assigned in the Unit 2 packet, and also all problems that have been assigned in the worksheets booklet for Unit 2. And of course, study for your test by picking some practice problems and doing those for tomorrow.